The herb garden is bursting at the seams. It's time to bring this harvest in. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Rock and Sea Homestead. This is Marcy coming at you today, and today we're talking about our herb garden. The harvest is upon us here because our herbs are literally bursting out of all of the different beds that we have here. So I need to get on top of this and get some of the stuff brought in and processed so that nothing goes to waste. So earlier this week I cut a bunch of lemon balm. You'd hardly be able to tell that I cut a bunch of lemon balm because you can see this lemon balm is still pretty huge, but I cut a whole bunch of this off and I dried it in the dehydrator. And we've done some oregano, I've done some chamomile, but today we're gonna focus on getting some of the spearmint cut and dried. So this is our spearmint plant, and as you can see, it is also bursting at the seams. I cut a little bit of that yesterday because I'm working on making a spearmint extract, but that doesn't take very much. What I really need to do is cut this thing back and get this in and dried and preserved so that nothing goes bad or goes to waste. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you our process for drying spearmint. This has changed a little bit over the past couple of years. I've changed my thoughts and my ideas on how I want to dry and preserve my herbs. So I'm going to walk you through what my current process is. So let's get started. Okay, so spearmint. I like to go ahead and try to go for the outside edges because you can see these things are starting to co-mingle. The spearmint and the lemon balm. It's the only thing I put in this bed. Last year we had 3 things, but the 3 things together just absolutely took over. You couldn't tell where one thing began and the other thing ended. So we scaled back to just lemon balm and spearmint because those are the things that I liked the best. So I'm just going to start trimming kind of towards, like I said, towards the outside edges to kind of pull this back from how it's encroaching into the other spaces here. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to get everything trimmed back, and you can pretty well, I'm not going to do that today, but you can pretty much scalp these bushes and they will come back. They are hard to kill. Anyone who's ever planted any kind of mint plant of any kind or something of the mint family knows that these things will take over if you let them. So it's recommended, a lot of people will recommend that you plant them in a raised bed because then you can contain them. We did it by chance. We don't really plant anything in the ground, so this is just our normal process, but I think it's good. Now, I'm going to put these into our dehydrator inside, so that has a finite amount of space. So I don't want to overdo it, or I will have to tie things up, which I'm trying to avoid. So I think that right there will be enough to fill up the dehydrator. So I'm going to stop right there, and it's helped a little bit. We've pulled a little way up from here and a little bit from here, so that gives us a little bit of breathing room, if you will. Like I said, I trimmed off the lemon balm yesterday. Can't hardly tell because it's out of control. Sorry, bug patrol here. Still, as are many of our other herbs. So I'm going one at a time. I don't want to mix them up in the dehydrator because it can have some effect on the way that they taste when they're dried. So I got it all picked. The rest of the process will be done inside, so let's go. We're back inside now, and the next step is to get these spearmint leaves rinsed. So for that, we just come over to the sink. I use a big colander like this. I give them a really good rinse down, and then I kind of lay them out over here to kind of dry a little bit, and I'll pat them dry with a paper towel. So here we go. So here is the dehydrator we have right now. We've got the Excalibur food dehydrator. And prior to owning this little beauty, primarily I dried herbs by tying them up by their stem and hanging them. Because the dehydrator we had prior to this one was pretty small and you really couldn't dry very many herbs at one time on that dehydrator. So typically I would tie them up and I'd hang them on a rack. That is very time consuming. It looks whimsical and it's nice. It gets the job done, but it takes up a lot of space because I have a lot of herbs, and it takes quite a bit of time and it takes quite a bit of effort. So in comes the Excalibur food dehydrator, and now that I've started using this to dehydrate herbs, I really don't want to do it any other way. So I have reverted to almost exclusively doing it using this food dehydrator, the Excalibur. So it's got all these trays. This is great. These trays are a little bit too close together to fill each one of them with the spearmint leaves. So I'm gonna go every other tray. As I fill these up, then I'll slide them in here, and once we got the whole thing filled up, I'll show you the setting and the time that you need to put on your dehydrator. You don't have to use this dehydrator. Any dehydrator will do. It's just a matter of volume and space, you know, how much you can do. So let me show you what the next steps are. Okay, so I've pulled out one of the trays, and what I usually do is just kind of double check as I lay the stems down onto the tray. I usually double check that there aren't gross leaves or bugs that I missed, or, you know, something gross that might have made a cocoon on a leaf or something like that. So I do a little cursory look, check over the leaves as I am putting them onto the tray. Doesn't mean I catch them all, and sometimes I'll pull them out of the dehydrator and there's gross dead leaves or whatever. But generally speaking, I try to give them a once over, and if there's anything really gross, I pull it out at that point before I put it into the dehydrator. So that's what I'm going to do now. So this is about where I want to end with this. You don't want this to be too heavily bunched up. You want there to be a little bit of space in there for the air to get all the way around the leaves. So this is about as full as I want this tray. And so I'm going to go ahead, and as you can see, it sticks up a little bit. So putting one set of leaves on each one of these trays, it'll be too much. So I usually take every other tray out, and that's about the right amount of space. Slides right in, see? So that's just about right. So now I'm going to I've taken this middle tray out. I'm going to take this one, and I'll remove this one, use this one, remove this one, use this one, remove this one, and I won't be able to do any more than that. All right, so that's the process I'm going to keep on going until this whole thing is filled up and we've put all the spearmint leaves on a tray. Okay, that is all of the spearmint leaves that I picked today, and I think that's going to fit just perfectly into the dehydrator. So now we'll put the front on this thing. I would say, generally speaking, most herbs are dried on a fairly low heat. So I'm going to keep my heat about 95-ish to 100. And that is actually set back here on this dial, and it'll show you it's got a nice little guide, temperatures and stuff that you can use for your various different kinds of things. But I've been drying herbs already, so I'm good with that. These will probably need to dehydrate maybe 12 to 18 hours. So I have a nice timer on here. I'm going to set it into the middle of that. I'm going to set it for about 14-ish. And this will run at that low temperature for 14 hours, or until we turn it off and say we're done. So we'll check on this. It's a little bit later in the evening now, so this will run overnight, and in the morning we'll check in and see if it's ready to go. And that's it. It's actually pretty simple. Now it does the work, and it'll be done tomorrow rather than in 2 weeks hanging on a drying rack somewhere in my house taking up space. So the spearmint leaves are in the dehydrator and they're working. But I did some lemon balm yesterday, so let me show you how I finish these up once they're finished, or once they're dry, I should say. So like I said, yesterday we did lemon balm. Once it was dry, Lance and I sat at the table and just pulled the leaves off of the stems, discarded the stems, and then we just packed the leaves. I try not to squish them in there too tightly, because I don't want to disrupt the leaves too much yet, because I want, when I pull them out to actually use them, if I crumble them then it releases a little more of the the flavor of the leaf, or of the herb. So I try not to crunch them in there too tightly. I push them down a little bit because, you know, you got to be practical. So that's just a pint mason jar lid. I like to write what the herb is and then month and year. So then we come over here to our handy dandy food saver, and this thing is great. You can seal a variety of different things, and we actually have the canning attachment for this one, which is great. It doesn't seal food, like you can't can tomatoes in it or something like that, but it's great for sealing things like this. So this one comes with two different attachment styles. This is for this size of a mason jar. This is for the wide mouth mason jars. So you weight on the ring, you put on the lid, this goes over the top of that, push it down really good, make sure your machine is on. In this case, you pull this little attachment out, this little accessory. That little nozzle goes into that little hole right there. There's a button that says accessory. That's what I'm going to push, and then it's going to make a lot of noise, and this light will show the progress. When this lights all the way up to the top and stops, the can is sealed. So here we go. And that's that. You pull this off. You pull this off. Easier said than done, apparently. There we go. Then you can put your, well, you can see it's sealed. See, I can't pull that off with my fingers. Put that on there. And sealing it this way pulls the air out, and it actually allows these herbs to keep fresh longer. So as we keep this right here on the countertop, so as we open these up to use them, we just bring them back over here and seal them up again. And it's worked really good so far. When I go to open these up, they're well sealed, and the herbs inside are fresh, and they stay fresh significantly longer if you'll seal them up that way. That's the entire process that I've been using here lately. Like I said, I kind of changed it up to almost exclusively using the dehydrator, and then I just run a different variety of herb through it every day or so, every couple of days really. So I've done some oregano already, we've done some lemon balm like I mentioned, I did some chamomile earlier, and now we're working on spearmint. Then I need to go back out and get the oregano and the thyme and the sage and just work my way down. By the time I get all the way to the end, it'll be time to come back around to the front and start harvesting those and putting them through the dehydrator again. So this has been much more efficient and better use of my time this year, although like I said, I do love the whimsy of having herbs tied up and dried on racks, so I might still do a little bit of that just because I really like that look and feel, and it's still a great way to dry herbs, tied together by the stem and hanging on a rack. A perfectly great way to dry herbs. Well folks, thank you so much for coming and watching this video today and watching it all the way through to the end. I really do appreciate that. If you haven't gotten started with herbs, it's a great way, or in gardening in general, herbs are a great way to get started. They're easy, they're fairly forgiving, and you get a lot of great different value out of these. You can use these for cooking, you can use these to make tea, you can use them, a lot of people use them for remedies, people will use them in their different canning projects. So herbs have a wide range of uses, and you can do all sorts of stuff with them. So highly recommend that. It's very rewarding, and again, it's pretty easy to do. It's how we got our start and how we realized maybe we could do more than just grow herbs, and now we do. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, now's a great time to do that. Just click that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you know every time we upload a new video. Also, check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We'd love to see you over there too. We try to post photos and updates on a little more regular basis on our Facebook and Instagram channels. So thanks again for coming back and watching, and from our homestead to yours, have a blessed day. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.